Hey everyone, welcome to Marketing for Designers podcast. I'm your host, Masha Coyne, a messaging strategist and a copywriter for the interior design industry. I've been marketing for what feels like forever in my past career at some of the biggest global firms like KPMG and Deloitte. Today, I write website copy for designers using my signature voice of customer framework. If you're a designer looking to up your marketing game and attract premium clients, this podcast is for you. Each week on the show, we're going to be talking all things marketing, from branding to messaging to social media, SEO, and so much more. So you can have all the tools you need to grow your business and attract your dream client. Welcome back to Marketing for Designers podcast. So every week I chat with either a marketing expert, an interior designer, or it's just you and I. And today I'm bringing you an expert, and not just any expert, but an expert that serves the interior design industry. So this is actually going to be so good because we're chatting about something pretty important to interior designers everywhere. We're talking about a shift in Instagram, and that affects you designers directly, how you show up, what you share, what kind of content you share, how you engage with your audience. I am pretty intrigued myself, and I can't wait to hear what my guest has to say on the subject. So to take us through this, I have Lezlie Swink joining me today. So let me tell you a little bit about Lezlie. Lezlie is the founder of Swink Social Co., a social media marketing agency dedicated to helping interior designers grow their businesses and stand out in the digital world. She leveraged her own marketing experience and passion for interior design to create solutions that help designers put precious hours back into their schedule while still creating powerful online presence that fosters community and generate leads. Specializing in Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, and email management and strategies, Leslie's mission is to make social media easy, effective, and enjoyable. With Swink Social Co., busy interior designers all across the country are seeing amazing results without feeling like they're glued to their phones 24/7. They have more time to do what they love, and that's design. Welcome to the show, Lezlie.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I am so excited about having you here, and I'm excited to have this conversation. And well, maybe let's jump right into it. What is going on with Instagram?
Yeah, so social media is always evolving, but we're really starting to see a bigger shift in the way that content is being consumed, especially on Instagram. And then we're going to talk about Instagram. It's something that I've been hearing a lot about, especially starting probably about Q2 last year, and then just starting to notice it more so on the app. And it's not something that people are making up. Even Adam Mosseri, the head of Instagram, has acknowledged that there is a shift taking us more to this entertainment style platform. But of course, they don't want to lose the social aspect of it. So I think that we need to just talk about like what that is, what that looks like, and how we can adjust strategies to kind of fit with that shift.
So to put it in the context, what are we doing today, and how does this change impact interior designers?
Sure. So, back in the old days, Instagram was just throw up a picture, a one-liner, and you're going to have tons of engagement. So that is not the case today. In fact, I think a lot of us are probably seeing a dip in engagement, and it's because of user behavior on the app. We have gotten to a point where we are consuming so much content because there's a lot more content now than there was, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And so we're really competing for people's attention, and that attention span is really, really short. So it's a shift of where we've got to immediately catch an audience member's attention to get them to even consume the content. So we're looking at more fast-paced things that really speak to our audience, really gets them saying, "Oh yeah, this is me." It makes it saying things that resonate with the audience is where we need to be shifting our focus.
Mm-hmm. I like what you said about you're seeing a dip in engagement. Is that what you're seeing with your own clients too?
Yeah, there's definitely we definitely have seen that drop in engagement, but we're working on creating the type of content to kind of move with this shift.
Why do you think this is happening? Like, why do you think people, because they're still looking at your content, they're still seeing it, they're just not maybe commenting or liking or resharing. Why do you think this is happening?
I think it's because there is so much content and they're
Mhm.
just kind of flipping through. And again, it's going more from that, like, hey, I want to interact with this to like, oh, okay, I see this. This is great. And I'm going to keep moving on. It's that entertainment style approach that we're taking now to these platforms rather than the connecting. Not to say, and I do want to preface this, not to say that connections are not important anymore. They definitely are, but we have to shift content to really facilitate those connections.
And it feels like there's got to be a healthy mix of that connection and entertainment. And so maybe if you can define for us what that means. So we're moving to entertaining content.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? What should we start doing? What should designers start doing?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of different approaches, and I know everybody is probably expecting, oh, do reels. You need to do reels. And
Yep.
I'm going to let you know that that's not necessarily it. That's part of it, but that's not the whole approach that you need to take. Video content is very important. We've known this. We've seen this. This is where people are really consuming that content. However, that's actually the content that we see the least engagement on. So
The
you
video?
really, yes, like you'll see a really good reach in that type of content. Just depending on what you're putting out, that's usually got the lowest engagement on it. So
That's so interesting.
yeah, yeah, no, it
But
is. But I think too,
is that different though? Video and reels are different.
no, no, no. When I say video, I'm speaking. When I say video and reels, it's one and the same because that's
Okay, got it.
yeah. What we're because whenever you upload a video now on Instagram, it immediately goes to the reels tab.
That's right. Okay.
So yeah, videos are reels, reels are videos.
Okay, so what advice would you give to interior designers as far as what they could do? Some of the things that they can try as far as
Yeah.
reels.
So, and some of this is, it's not like there is a magic, like silver bullet solution
Yeah.
to it. These things actually go back to things that we should be doing. We should be doing all the time. And number one is showing up. All right. And so, but when we talk about showing up, there's different ways to show up. Obviously, showing your face, like that is one of the most important things that you can do. One of the biggest mistakes I see designers make, even before this whole shift, is hiding behind designs. Your designs are gorgeous, but guess what? There are a lot of really gorgeous designs out there. And so, being able to put yourself out there is just going to help you differentiate yourself from other people. And one of the ways that I think every interior designer, I think every business owner should invest in this: book a brand photography shoot, get some professional images. It'll make it so much easier. You'll have them in your back pocket. You can put them out there. There's your face, your
It's just going to make you
voice.
so much more confident to do that.
It is. It really is. And I can tell you, if I were to go look at all of my clients' accounts and I'm looking at, and I look very often, at least once a month, if not more, but what is performing well in the last 3 months, in the last year, in the last 2 years. And I look at the top nine, half of those, at least half of those are going to be personal images,
That's so
personal
interesting.
content. That is what gets the best reach. That's what gets the best engagement. So put your face out there. The second thing is when we talk about showing up is your voice. And I know people are camera shy, and I know it's not the easiest thing to, just one day just pop on video and be like, yeah, I'm just going to show up on video. It takes practice. It takes, and what did I read the other day? You don't, oh, I'm going to mess up this quote. And it's so good. But confidence isn't something that you have. It's something that you build by doing things. And
Practice.
that's, yeah. And that is
Absolutely.
what happens with video. The more you get on there, the better it's going to be. And the thing about with reels, like if you're doing reels or you're doing a story or anything like that, you can record it. And if you don't like it, re-record it. Not a big deal.
I agree. I think the one thing is showing your face. I think it's a little bit easier than actually recording something and letting your audience hear you talk. I know this was one of my goals that I recently came to. I was like, okay, I'm going to start showing up on stories. And it's as simple as that. It's stories. But oh my God, let me tell you, it is not simple. I must have still like 7 or 8 takes just to record one 90-second video. It takes a lot of practice. But as I've been doing that for the last couple of weeks, for example, I feel like takes less and less takes at this point. I'm like, okay, you know what? It's just going to sound raw and real and authentic. I don't care if I'm stumbling or doing the ums, because it's real, because people connect to that. And I do see that people are responding to that positively, and they send me messages like, oh my God, I love what you said. And it's not easy, but you do need a little bit of practice just to start doing that.
Oh, for sure. And I will tell you, just on a personal note, if I take a break where I don't get on stories a lot and I'm not doing the video, when I try to like get back in that groove, like, dang it, why is this so hard? So it's just having to like kind of retrain myself to do that. But once you get there, it's fine. And I think the other thing that I really want to just point out is that nobody is judging you the way you are judging yourself. Nobody.
We are, what is that saying? We're our worst critic.
Oh, that's for sure.
100%.
Yeah.
And what would you say? What tip would you give to, like, let's say interior designers do want to start showing up on stories or do want to start recording themselves talk? What could they even talk about? Because that was one of the questions I kept asking myself. I'm like, well, I'm not going to talk about my process all the time. I'm not going to talk about, my services. What can they talk about?
Yeah. So they can talk about anything. I mean, that's what's great, especially, and I always tell people who are camera shy, start with stories. Okay. And start with just taking a selfie, no video. I'm not going to push you into video yet. I want you to start by just taking a picture of yourself and writing down, like, what are you doing today? What are you thinking? Something like that. Just get used to putting that out there. Then, especially for designers, again, you don't have to be on camera, but whenever you are out and about, film what's going on. Are you on site? Film that. Are you in a showroom? Film that. And talk about what's happening. Your face isn't on camera, but your voice is. So you're starting to kind of build that presence. You've got the pictures of you. Now you've got your voice. Now you put it together. That's when you flip the camera around and you start talking about whatever. I always tell people with stories, like I have a 3-part story strategy. And that is post something personal, something that you're doing. Maybe it's a beautiful sunset, or maybe you're at the beach, or maybe you're having the best lunch at your favorite restaurant, right? Something that you're working on, and something that entertains you. It can inspire you. It could be funny. This could be like sharing a reel that is funny. It could be sharing a post that has an inspirational quote or anything like that. But those 3 things will help you start consistently showing up on stories. And if you're camera shy, then start with just the picture, start with video where you're not in the video, you're just talking about what you're doing, and build up that confidence so that you can turn that camera around and start videoing yourself with your voice, and then just practice it.
That's like an entry point to stories, entry point to showing up. Don't start with your face, just start with kind of taking your audience on a tour of whatever you're doing. And actually, those are probably my favorite stories. I follow so many designers, and one of my favorite stories is when they take you on, whether it's a project site or maybe design day, reveal day, whatever that is. It's so interesting to see the back end of things, how things are happening. This is how design is happening. And you start building that connection, and you kind of allow your audience to get to know you, even though it's not you with your face right there. But I also want to mention, I do love your 3-part stories framework: the personal, what you're working on, and the third one was entertaining, inspiring, share something. That's cool. That sounds easy enough. It doesn't sound that difficult.
Yeah, no, it's really not. And I think too, like with stories, it's raw. Like, it does not have to be curated. It's where you show up as is.
I like that. Just authentic to yourself. Exactly. Yeah. I like that. So Can we talk a little bit more about storytelling? I feel like there's so much, I feel like there's so much in common between what I do as a copywriter for interior designers when I write their website copy and what you do for your clients when you do social media and your email strategy using storytelling. I'd love to hear your take on storytelling in the context of Instagram. How can designers use storytelling on
Well, let's think
Instagram?
about it. Storytelling is entertaining. We are drawn to stories. We connect with stories. We remember stories. So storytelling feeds seamlessly into the shift that's happening into this more entertainment style content. So it's very important to tell those stories. And I think really when it comes down to telling stories, there's different ways to do that, right? You can do that through your captions, through your copy. You can do that through your video. There are different ways that you can approach storytelling. And I know that we've had this conversation before, but I had gone back because I'm like, what is it? What are the posts that get the most engagement? What does that look like? And so I looked at my account, I looked at all my clients' accounts, like I'm looking at all of these posts and trying to like pull out like where's the common thread in all of this. And what I found was that the posts that had that storytelling element were the ones that were getting the most engagement. And there was kind of a framework that it followed. And whenever the story opens, it is how you personally relate to whatever topic you're talking about. All right. And then you get into whatever that topic is. And then at the end of it, it's how does your audience relate to it? So you've
That's right.
really
That's so
hit,
interesting.
all of those things. You talk about how it relates to you, what that topic is, how it applies to them. And those overwhelmingly, that was the style of caption that got the most engagement out of all of my clients.
So it sounds like it could be regardless of what you're sharing in a particular post or a story or a reel or whatever that is, whether it's a business related or how you serve or your process, when you weave story into it, you tie it directly to what you do. And that's why it works. There has to be a connection between a story. And it's not just a random story. You're tying it specifically to what you do. You're helping your audience get that connection, understand this is how I do it. I'm just basically presenting it in a more interesting and engaging way.
Yes, exactly. So I have not shared this story with anybody, but I think it's just such a good example. And I'll try to wrap it up really quick. But my dad retired a couple years ago. Okay. Once he retired, every morning he sends out a joke, a dad joke, but it's not like your random dad joke. He puts it into a story. He adds his family as part of the story. And he does this every single day. Well, number one, I'm going to read it because it's my dad and I'm going to read his joke. But it's like, who's in the story today? I know it's coming. There's that consistency factor that really plays into it. And then it's engaging because it's not just some random joke that he found out of a book or online. He has created a story with characters that are us, his family. And so it really makes us connect with the
What
joke.
a great story. And he explains why it's important, why it's relevant. I love that. I love that story.
I know. And it's funny because it's like, wow, Dad, you're really good at marketing and you have no idea.
And consistent, which is like the biggest struggle for interior designers. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I like that. So storytelling is huge. So let's say all of us do that. We show up consistently. We start entertaining. So we do what the Instagram wants us to do. We use storytelling. We showcase our personality. We show up authentically. We do everything that you're asking us to do. But if all of us are doing that, how do we stand out? How do we differentiate from each other?
That's a great question. And I think too, whenever you're talking about showing up authentically, you have to know, okay, what makes you authentic? Right? What do you add that nobody else can add? So I went in November, I went down to Dallas to the Design Influencer Conference.
Mm-hmm.
And Christian Dahl was the keynote speaker. And it was really interesting because it was a great session. One of the things that he really hit on was what was unique about him. And what makes him unique is that he was a lawyer turned architectural designer. Right. I mean, that's crazy. Who goes from a lawyer background to design? Like those, they feel like two separate worlds, right? So that's what kind of made him unique. And he played on that. Like he used that to really, obviously he's a phenomenal designer. But there's a lot of phenomenal designers. How many are lawyers turned designer? Now, that doesn't mean that you have to have this like crazy transition from one career to another to have a unique value proposition. It just means that you have to figure out, what are you doing differently? Maybe it's your design style. Maybe it's your approach to design. Maybe it's your process. I know designers that are out there killing it because they're talking about their process. It's very transparent. People know exactly what they're getting into, right?
I love that. I loved it. I've worked with a number of designers whose process is their secret sauce. Mm-hmm. That's one of the best ways to stand out. But what you just talked about, that's your story, because nobody can replicate that. Because like you said, interior designers, everywhere they have a similar process, they work similarly, they may design in a similar style, but nobody has that rich past, or that nobody walked the exact same path that you walked. And this could be your differentiator, your X factor.
Yeah. I have one client, and there's actually she brings two unique things to the table. And one is the type of, and it's not the only type of project that she works on, because she works on all different types of projects, but she's really known for updating historical homes, bringing a fresh, modern approach while, still keeping the character and charm of a historical home. That's what she's known for. She travels all around. She goes to museums. She does, all these things to learn about this history, to know what needs to be preserved, how to preserve it, but how do you bring in that fresh, modern element? So that's one of the things that we talk about a lot in her content, because that's what really sets her apart. People are really drawn to that. The other thing that we talk about is her approach to design. And her unique approach is to, tackle a project using several different styles. So that way, there's a lot of interest. So that's just kind of an idea, just to get some, for the listeners, ways to be thinking about what makes you unique.
I love that you help your clients. Do they come to you I'm curious whether your clients come to you knowing they're a differentiator, or is this something that you help them determine?
So some of them know, I mean, they're very clear on it. A lot of times the clients that I work with, it's through our power hours. So it's kind of through that consulting. So they're kind of at a point where they're like, I'm not really sure what it is. And it really is just a conversation that we have. I'm just like, tell me, like, just talk to me about your business. Tell me about design. I'll start asking some questions, and you can see it. You can see it whenever we get there, because we reach a point in the conversation and all of a sudden their eyes light up. You can see their passion. You can hear their passion. And it's like, that is it. If that's what lights you up, that's what you need to run with. And that's what you need to start conveying to your audience. Because if you're this passionate about it, they are going to pick up on it, and they're going to share your passion. They're going to see your passion for it.
I love that. And that's another similarity between what I do. I also have a questionnaire, and I have conversations and strategy sessions where we kind of talk through things. And sometimes it's that obvious. It's not always obvious. Sometimes we kind of uncover it. But I'm curious, for designers listening, and for those that are not sure what their secret sauce is, are there certain questions that they should ask themselves to help them arrive at that, UVP, the secret sauce, the X factor?
Yeah. I think too that it's not even a question that you ask yourself, but questions that you ask your maybe past clients, maybe your friends, your family. Like, you ask them, what am I good at when it comes to this? What's the first thing that pops into your head? And usually if you start seeing, like, you ask enough people and you start getting the same answer, and you've honed in on what that is.
That's interesting, because sometimes you're simply too close to it. You're in your business every day, right? So sometimes you're just way too close to it, and you need that outsider's perspective. So I love that idea of talking to other people. for my process, I actually interview clients, but I love that for those designers that are not there yet, that don't want to outsource this part of their business, talking to your friends, talking to your
Yeah.
vendors, talking to your, I don't know, network of other designers or
Yeah.
just family members.
Right. And also, like, what topics could you just get up and talk about all day long? Right.
That's
Like,
an
those are
amazing
the
question. That
things.
that usually points in the right direction. That's usually the thing that you can talk about for an hour without any rehearsing, something that you're
Oh,
passionate about. That could be it. That could be
yep.
the thing that you're so good at.
Yeah.
I like that. Well, I feel like Instagram, a lot of it, and we touched on that, a lot of it is about reels. Is there anything else that you can share with designers that could, maybe they've never done reels, maybe they're like me who have, well, I've done reels, but I think I look at reels a little bit differently. That's like kind of videos, but not those videos where you have to like overlay the sound and it sounds complicated. Can you say something that doesn't make it sound complicated and it's
Yes.
easier than we think?
Yes. There are, first of all, there's a million different types of reels that you can do. Some can be overly produced. Some of them can be as simple as what we call B-roll video with a powerful message on top of it. And this is actually, we're seeing a lot of traction with this style of video. And again, you just have to kind of like be on top of like what is working, that kind of thing. But B-roll video is, and this is what I love about B-roll video. It can be anything. In fact, I have a post about ideas for interior designers to capture B-roll, and this is footage. Like maybe you're in a showroom. Just get your camera out and just walk around the showroom. That's it. Maybe you're at market again. Film that. Maybe you are putting together, I don't know, a material selection. Film yourself doing that. Film yourself at the computer. And then what you do is you have all of this footage, and then you just pull it out. The key here is to make sure that there's an impactful message. So this is where it really goes back to go back to the basics. Do you know your ideal client? Do you know what they are struggling with? Do you know how their service helps them? What are those emotional triggers? You want to have, you want to speak to them that they're like, oh my gosh, she knows exactly what I'm feeling right now.
That's right. You want to have your audience basically nodding their head as they're watching
Yes.
your content or engaging with your content. And I absolutely love your tip for just doing that B-roll. And I actually got my husband to do that. He's a general contractor in Toronto. And I'm like, okay, whatever you're doing, whichever client you're at, whichever project, just pull out your phone and show me something. I'll do the rest. I'll put music to it. I'll put some words, but just do that. Just give me something, the video, because it may not look like much to you, but then when you put it all together and you overlay with the right message, you can create really good content.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it just kind of depends like on your style. That's obviously like probably one of the easiest ones if you've never done reels before, probably one of the easier ones to kind of dip your toe in the water, if you will.
That's right.
But then you can get pretty I think with reels, and especially going into again this more entertainment, like we can't just show like here's the before and here's the after. Like we need to have, and I think that the DIYer accounts, like I think they do such a good job at this. They do such a good job because they are, maybe they're doing a room, and like so it's really a transition. But these have to be planned out. Like you have to kind of think about this as you go into a project. So maybe it's like you walk up to the wall before, you've got your paintbrush in hand and you tap the wall. Well, then after the project's done, like maybe you repainted, then you kind of do another video where you're lined up again and the paintbrush is touching the wall. So it looks like, and you can create, if you get, and editing is not hard. Again, it all goes back to a little bit of practice goes a long way. But you can transition it so then it looks like, okay, I just touched it and boom, it changed.
I love that. I love that. It sounds pretty simple. It sounds like we can do so much and it doesn't have to be overly complicated, because I think in our heads, when we think about it, it was like, oh, reels. It sounds like we have to dance and sing and do all of those things, but it's really not. It's just about entertaining. Go back to
Yes.
the entertainment and then kind of
Yes.
this
I always
shift
tell
in
people,
Instagram.
if you see me dancing on a reel, I'm having a medical emergency and you better call an ambulance because you will not catch me dancing on a
That's right.
reel.
You should hear us copywriters talk about the whole thing on Instagram. It's like, no, no way. No, if you think designers are, struggling with that, you should hear copywriters talk about that.
Yeah.
Whole different ball game. But
Yeah.
that's interesting. And I absolutely love this conversation. And I don't mind this shift, to be honest. I like that. And it goes back to what you said earlier. It is important to keep in mind that you have to know your audience at the end of the day. Your
Mm.
content has to speak to your audience. You have to know what are they struggling with? What do they desire? And then, inject your personality and storytelling into it. And then you've got this great content that your audience actually wants and seeks.
Well, and kind of to go back to that, great content happens when you're having fun, right? So don't stress yourself out over it. Like do stuff that makes you happy, that feels fun, because when it feels fun, it people pick up on that. If it feels forced, people also pick up on that.
It's when you
So you
overthink it. That's when it
Yes,
feels, yeah.
yes, yeah. Like, I mean, seriously, sometimes, and this, as much of a planner as I am, like, there are some days where I'm just like, I don't like this plan. I'm just going to do what I want to do. And that is actually some of the best content, is when I just kind of off the cuff, like, this is how I feel today. This is what I'm going to create. As long as it ties back to my purpose, that's fine.
I
I'm good with
like
it.
that. That's what I started doing recently. It's as simple as if I have a great call with a client, or if I have an interview, or I just finished the project, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna whip on my phone and literally record 60 to 90 seconds just talking about that.
Yeah.
Literally,
Yeah.
that's how easy it is, because sometimes I think, well, I have to go back to my content pillars and I have to think about how it fits.
Yeah.
But those posts, often the ones that I did not plan out, they perform the best.
They do. They do. Yeah. There's something to be said about living in the moment.
That's right. Well, on this note, do we want to cover anything that I haven't asked you, or do we want to just summarize it for interior designers? What are the basics? What do they need to know about this very important shift in Instagram?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing that I want your listeners to get from this is to understand that there's a shift, but don't freak out that there's a shift. Like, we're not panicking, guys. This is not panic time. This is just for your information. If you are seeing a dip in engagement, try something new. You got to experiment, right? And you might do something and it might flop, but that just means, and first of all, I always say you need to try something more than once. Okay. Because your
100%.
audience might be like, that's new. I haven't, like, for example, I'll give you a good example. There's a strategy now to get people to sign up. So, like, let's say instead of like, head to the link in bio to check out my freebie, you can say, comment freebie, and I will DM you whatever it is, right? Okay. And it's through a program called ManyChat. You can do it manually if you are on top of your comments, or you can sign up for ManyChat, and it creates a workflow and automatically sends it out. Just a little back story on
Oh,
that.
interesting.
The first couple of times I did it, nothing, like nothing. And I was like, okay, all right, well, no problem. I'm gonna keep doing it. I've done it the past 2 times, and I'm growing my email list. But if I would have stopped, then I never would have got to this point. So just because something doesn't work once doesn't mean that it's garbage and you should scrap it. Give it a couple more tries. All right. Now, if it's not working, after a while, you're like, okay, this isn't it. Try something else. Just
That's a
keep
good idea.
experimenting.
That's a good idea. It takes, and I think with Instagram, we also have to keep in mind that we think, like, we sit here and overanalyze every single post, but not everybody sees your every single post. And sometimes when we repost the same things, 2 months later, we see a completely different engagement. And it's surprising to us. Oh, what? I posted it 2 months ago and I didn't get nothing. But not everybody sees every single piece of information or content that you put out there.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And also, like, just to kind of, and I don't want to get off topic on that, but just something to kind of, for designers to think about, is that you can take one piece of content Okay. And you need to share it in different formats. So maybe you do a Reels, maybe you do a post, maybe you do a carousel. It doesn't matter that it's the same thing, right? It's the same message. It's delivered in different formats. People resonate with different types of formats. Keep putting it out there.
I'm a true believer of that. And I do that myself all the time. If I see something is resonating, or if I am really passionate about a certain topic, or if it's a blog, I will slice it and dice it 100 times and share it differently. Carousels work amazing. And sometimes recording a story, just a different format, because you have to keep in mind that different people engage with content differently, even on websites. Like I do website copy. That's my specialty. But even there, we utilize things like bullet points and headlines, because we can't rely on people engaging and consuming your content the same way. Some respond to video, others respond to just kind of high level information, and other methodical people will actually read everything word for word. So we have to keep in mind that your audience responds to content differently based on, how they like to consume information.
Exactly.
I love that. Lezlie, this was awesome. So much to keep in mind and so much to try. And I love what you said about experiment and try different things, different ways of doing things. The one question that I would love to ask, which is something that I started asking people at the end of the podcast episode, is, was there something, and I should have asked you that before, but was there something pivotal in your career, something that happened, or something like a new habit that you started doing that was truly pivotal to your career or to your life?
Oh, I'm a thinker, so I'm gonna think really fast on this one.
I'm so sorry that I just sprung that on
No,
you, but I'm so curious.
It's okay. No, it's okay. I think really one of the things that I guess maybe a shift is that, and I really feel like I've kind of, even from the beginning, have felt this way. And I feel like this is not necessarily my unique value proposition, but definitely a value and something that I hold dear, is that I don't believe that you need a huge following to make a big impact. And I will always live and by that. And so once I kind of adopted that, my following still, it grows. It definitely grows, but I'm not consumed by that. Not consumed by that.
Not
And I
paying
don't want,
attention to that vanity
really
metric.
yeah, no, that's it. Because I mean, a follower is not a dollar in my bank account, right? Like that, it doesn't equate that way. So I look at, I want to make sure that yes, my account's growing, but not because I want to see that number on my profile go up. It's because I want to make a bigger impact and I want to reach more people. That is the reason for it. And so, and I think too, when you kind of shift it, it's like, I'm not creating content for followers. I'm creating content to help people and to guide people and to connect with people. That was pivotal.
Lezlie, can you tell us where our audience can find you?
Absolutely. So I am hanging out on Instagram at swink.social.co, and you can visit my website at swinksocialco.com.
Perfect. And we'll make sure to put that in the show notes.
Awesome. Thank you.
Lezlie, again, I want to thank you so much for coming here today and sharing so much about Instagram and how it's shifting and how it's impacting interior designers everywhere. I personally took a bunch of notes. So I'm ready to experiment and try a couple of things. I hope our listeners will do the same.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Marketing for Designers. This is Masha Cohen signing off. See you next week.